Emily, welcome to our show. It's a wonderful thing to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Some of you may recognize Emily. Emily did some wonderful modeling for Dimples. I think about a year ago. You can see pictures of her with some of our toppers on. She came over. We did a whole show with her. She did all these videos. Now we have her. About a year later, we get to really see and understand who Emily is.
Yes, and that was so fun, by the way. I was so happy to be there and be part of everything. So thank you for having me for that too.
You got it. So, Emily, we are here to talk about the journey and all parts of the journey. We talk about hair, we talk about the loss of hair, the loss of self, and then the transformations and the awareness. So, never done this before, but I just wonder, what if we were to start with right now? So, where are you at with your journey today?
Well, right now, compared to probably about 4 years ago, I would say I am doing much better. I think that it gets to the point sometimes where you realize you can't just be living in moping, you know. It gets to the point, I think, in life where you realize that moping is not the answer. And so I just got to that place, and now it's healthy. And now I've learned certain tools that I can use uh, just to be in this mindset that's healthy for me and for those around me too.
So, what kind of tell me about the mindset and tell me about the tools?
So I learned after I had my second, which was in about 2017, that's when my hair loss started to really activate, just postpartum, things like that. So I've had it since I was 17, but it didn't really go into this aggression mode until 2017. And so once that happened, I found myself kind of spiraling and kind of just thinking to myself, I just had a baby. This is so much. I'm overweight. I'm losing my hair. And so I had to really be conscious about what I was consuming, because I think in the society that we live in, it's so infiltrated with all of these expectations of what a woman should look like. And I found myself being in the middle of that and thinking to myself, I should look a certain way. You have all these celebrities that just had a child and they're just like, just walking around like nothing. And those expectations, I think, as women, we put on ourselves and we think this is what it should be like. So I had to really implement certain tools, such as writing notes on my mirror, just as a reminder, because after having a baby, when we're going through postpartum and things like that, it becomes difficult to really focus on ourselves in prioritizing ourselves. And so I had to make it a habit. Every time I woke up, the first thing that I saw was, I'm worthy. I am confident. I am this and that, and whatever that looks like for you, having those reminders on a post-it on the mirror just as a tool. And so now I don't necessarily have to look at them. I can kind of just repeat them in my mind whenever I have those moments of weakness, because we all do, we're human. So those are the kind of tools that I've been able to use to get me to this point. And that's just a small, easy tool that anyone can use now, but that has helped me get me to the point where I am today.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing those. We're going to delve more into those solutions, your mirror process. I am ... today, that you can take around everywhere with you. I love that. You talked about postpartum, having kids. It's so common. I'm hearing this a lot from consumers and everyone, influencers. After having kids, the hair loss really kicked up. Tell me about what it was like with postpartum, and what does it feel like to be there and how long it lasts?
Yeah. So it looks different for everyone. Everyone's body is different. For me, I was diagnosed with lupus in 2016 after I had my first kid. And after that, it was almost like a spiral again, where it was just this wallowing of, oh my gosh, everything is going wrong. I got diagnosed with lupus. My knees are deteriorating. My hair is falling. I'm having postpartum depression. All of these things just bundling up, and then the hair loss being on top of that. So again, postpartum looks differently for everyone, but I felt my hormones really fluctuating after this third one. I have 3 baby girls. So after this third one, I felt my hormones really shift. And so even with my second one, and so I think as the hormones are shifting, I think it's sometimes difficult to solidify those foundations of finding that self-worth in who you are, because as women we have those hormones again that fluctuate as we have kids, and so it becomes difficult to really narrow down and be steady in the process. It's almost like it's just different every week, every day, every month. It can be different, and so it's really important to solidify those foundations, not only just the tool that I mentioned prior, but also just implementing other things, who you surround yourself with, things like that.
So you said you've got 3 girls.
Yeah.
How old are your girls?
7, 5, and 2.
Oh, you got a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
Oh my God, 7, 5, almost 2 to 3 years apart. Wow.
Yeah. So imagine, just back to back having kids. It's been crazy, but beautiful. I don't regret anything, but it's been work.
Are you gonna, I'm sure you get this asked by family.
No,
Are you going
no,
for number 4? Sorry, number 4.
No, we're not. We're done. I think we were already a little bit surprised with the third one. And it was a happy surprise, but then also a nervous surprise, and also just a surprise because weren't planning on it. So I think being a family of 5 resonates better than a family of 6 for us. We just kind of realize that's what we can handle, and that's what I think works for us. So I'm good. I'm done. So is he.
We've got myself and my wife Nina. We've got 2 boys. Actually, as I was waiting for Emily to join this interview, I was actually FaceTiming with my almost 3-year-old. He was pooing in the toilet. It was an epic day, and Emily got to witness that when she joined in. I was FaceTiming with him. He hadn't pooed in a few days, and he's just his first real poo on a toilet. And so you got to experience that. And we also have a 5-month-old boy as well. So we get asked that a lot. So what about number 3? You're going to have the girl, and I'm on the same boat as you.
Yeah, and there's all these timelines, right? You guys start dating, when are you going to get married? You guys get married, when are you going to have a kid? You guys have a kid, when are you going to have another one? And then it's just like, it never ends. Then it's like, when are you going to retire? I don't know. It's all these things, So it's all beautiful.
Yeah, we're good with 2, or I'm good with 2. Hopefully my wife is too.
She wants more.
Yeah, well, I don't know, probably not, but who knows. But yeah, the whole the postpartum depression, the energy it takes to have kids, it really is a common thread in thinning hair and hair loss. I'm hearing it a lot. And I love that you actually really focused on phrases like self-worth, focusing on ourselves, prioritizing on ourselves, because it's so easy to get lost in kids and trying to get them to keep them alive and all that. But yeah, so tell me a bit more about focusing on yourself and prioritizing yourself. How are you able to do that with such a schedule?
A lot of it honestly depends on your partner. I have a spouse who's really supportive. He's very hands-on. Um, he's very involved. And so he doesn't mind taking up a lot of the load. So when we had our first, I would cook a lot of our dinners. And I was also working for the school district, and I was trying to juggle all of these things. And my husband just had to step up and take in more of that role. He started cooking more. He started taking initiative more, doing the grocery shopping without being asked, and just you realize that when you guys are working together, a lot of it just starts to flourish and work on its own. So for me, anyway, that's how we've been able to navigate, for me to be able to have some alone time. Now, after having a baby, let's say the first 6 months, they're right at the hip. And for me, I mean, that's typical, right? But for me, it was a little bit longer than that. I nursed my first for a full year. I nursed my second for 18 months and my third for 2 years. So when the breastfeeding process is there, babies are attached at your hip. And so having that alone time is harder, because then they don't want to leave your side, or you have to pump milk, or, all of these things that come up. And so it's harder to take time for myself and really be intentional about that. And so I've had to balance that and think, okay, is this shame, or is this something that I genuinely need? And being able to find wisdom in that and know I am important too. I love my kids. My kids know that I love them. But in order for me to take care of them and be the best version of myself, I have to take care of myself. I love getting massages. Absolutely love it. My husband knows that. He knew just to take initiative eventually, just to book me a book massage. And he's like, you know what? I got you. And so that has made a world of difference. And that's just a small thing, right? And so just for me to be able to have a small reset. A couple months ago, I took my first trip overnight by myself. It was the first time. And I remember the day before just almost saying, I'm just not going to go. I started feeling guilty and thinking, I'm going to leave these kids. Like, they're just going to think the worst. They're going to think I don't want to hang out with them. What am I going to do? So I ended up going, obviously. I didn't sleep at all. I slept 3 hours, but let me tell you, it was glorious. I got to go on a bike ride. It's so different just being able to just hone down to who I am as an individual, not who I am as a mom, because I'm a mom and so much more, right? There's so much more to me. It's not just a mom. And so sometimes we lose sight of that, and finding who we are before having kids is so important. And some of that is found in taking those getaways for one night, going out for the day, and things like that. And so after I came back, even though I hadn't slept at all, it was totally worth it just to not even have to worry about little kids. And it sounds so bad, but it's not. I think people just don't talk about it. And so it needs to be talked about more.
The self-care retreats, like you just said, or just a few hours or overnight, amazing to recharge. I'm very big on that too. I do my retreats in my man cave with some guitars, or maybe with some fellows. I do that, but absolutely, I have to recharge my battery, because if I'm running on empty and I got nothing to give, it's like then I start like, there's like nothing left in me, and my family needs a lot from me. I have to do the things. I've not had kids or anything, right? But I'm a dad, and I've got lots of responsibilities, but totally relate with that. And I'm so happy that you have a partner that's understanding, that can handle the 3 girls while you go and do your self-care trip. So good for you.
It's a blessing. Yes, it's
What
a
a
blessing.
blessing. So let's go back, because I want to just get some clarity on dates. You've got a 7-year-old, but I think you said was it 3 years ago? No, 4 years ago. Was it 4 years ago? You said you first experienced hair loss, or was it before that? I'm a bit confused.
So at 17, my hair started falling out in the back of my. Yes. So that was just, in this area here. And I noticed it when I was doing my hair because I would love, just to curl my hair. I had long hair. I would dye it. I just had fun with my hair. And I started noticing it when I was about 17. In 2006 is when I had my first. And I didn't really notice much hair loss at that point. I was misdiagnosed with lupus. And so I thought I had lupus up until last year. And I think that took a part in it too, because it was stressful. And it just became a big life event. And sometimes our bodies react differently in stress. And for me, it just became rapid hair loss. So then after I had my second in 2018, I believe. Yes. That's when it started getting thin right here. And it was just, just a bald spot right there. And at that point, I thought, that's different. I've never had hair loss up there before. I've always just teased the back, just left it alone. I can't even see the back if I look bald, whatever. But, now when I was getting ready, I just thought, oh my gosh, it's up here now. And so after 2018 and up till now, it just migrated all here. And it was after or right before I had my third that I just thought, man, I'm thinking about this often. My hair, I just going, just putting my hand through my hair, I would see all this hair in my hand or after the shower. And I remember thinking, this is so discouraging. I don't want to think about this anymore. I've always wanted to buzz my head. I've always just wanted to be bald. So I just buzzed my head. I just shaved my head. And it wasn't a Britney Spears moment. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but we were in the kitchen, with my husband and my sister, and my sister was supportive. She's like, I'll do it for you. I was like, cool. So here I am just buzzing my head off, and she's helping me. And my husband's a little iffy about it. My cousin was also there. He was baffled and thought, you're crazy. He was so upset.
Hold on a minute. Wait. So you buzzed your hair. Was this a intuitive moment where you decided, I'm in the kitchen, I'm just getting some milk out of the fridge. Hey, I want to buzz my hair right now. Or was it something that you were talking about for a while, like, husband, thinking about buzzing my hair, maybe weeks or months,
No,
or was it
was impulsive.
It was impulsive.
It was pretty impulsive. But then
Whoa.
prior to that, I had these thoughts in my head. Being bald would be cool. I'd always wanted to try that.
And was that after kid number 2, after 2018?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was right before I got pregnant with my third.
Okay, so I'm trying to draw a timeline here with all these kids and
right?
Yeah. So before you, so before your third. Oh, so wait, so you buzzed your hair in 2021?
Or 2020 or 2021.
What?
I want to say 20,
your hair grows so fast.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I saw you a year ago.
I know.
And it was long.
Yes. This is
my goodness. It grows like 5 inches.
It doesn't like to grow on the top. It just grows.
But it grows everywhere else, like 5 inches a week.
Everywhere else. Yeah.
Gosh. So that is nuts. So, whoa. I mean, that's unbelievable how fast your hair grows. So I just want to back up real quick. Emily was, for those of you who are listening to the podcast on your commute home, wherever you're doing, Emily was saying, I lost hair at the back first, and she put her hand at the back of her head. Was that how far down the back? Was it at the nape, or between the nape and the what I have, the flat part, the crown area? Whereabout?
Yes,
or was it the crown? The crown area.
It was between the nape and the crown area.
Between the nape and the crown. So the nape is
and
where,
it's still there.
And it's still that. So the nape is where I'm showing with my hand right now. But for those that are listening on the podcast, the nape is basically where my hair finishes at my neck, the bottom, like the thickest part, and then the crown is the crown. Like where we get the that like swirly part. There's like there's all kind. I've heard all kinds of nicknames for that from hairstylists, like the butt crack and all kinds.
It's in the butt crack. It's right there.
There's some, yeah. So and then later on, after kid 2, right, 2018, you said you started to get the hair loss in the front, and was that like right at the front, so the top of your forehead, the hairline at the top of the forehead, or a couple of inches behind?
It was right behind my hairline.
Okay.
Next to my middle part.
So it is definitely tragic to lose hair. It is. I definitely don't want to discount that, but it's probably the best ways to have a little bit in that front. So that's awesome, as you know, because we're going to get into toppers later. So you lost some hair after the first inch or two, and then you said, and after the third kid, it went more, or it was around the same.
It was rampant after the third kid. It just spread from that little spot there in a year. It was just this whole thing. It was like a toupee of baldness.
So then it extended from 2 inches behind the hairline towards the crown area.
Yes. And so even when I buzz my head, you can see.
Yes.
Just this area here where the follicles are pretty much dead.
Yes. As you can kind of see with mine, I've got a buzzed head too, but that's another story. So but then you have this like insane gift for the rest of your bio hair. I mean, I've never heard of hair grow so fast in my life. I mean, 2020 to 2023, in 3 years. I mean, you've been cutting it too in 3 years.
Yes.
That's crazy.
I got it cut. Yes.
It looks very healthy. Your bio hair looks very healthy.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's like a nice, it helps like dark chocolatey color. It's just lovely. It's very nice.
Thank you. So it is nice. Nice to just find a topper that's this color.
Yes. And we're going to get to that in a little bit because I think, we can talk about that. Brunettes versus blondes with toppers. That's a great topic we'll talk about in a sec. So you buzzed your head. Okay. I'm just putting the milk back, honey, and I'm going to buzz my head right now. Okay. So tell me more.
Well, I just said, you know what? I'm just going to do it. Like, this just sounds fun. We're all here. Let's just have a gathering. Let's just go ahead and be around me in this chair. And let's just have some fun. My cousin didn't think it was fun. My sister was laughing. And my husband was just like, you do you. Just, he knows me already. He just kind of let me do whatever.
What time of evening? Let's just paint a picture. Did you have dinner? Were the kids in bed already?
It was after dinner. The kids were in bed.
Kids are in bed, right?
The kids were definitely in bed. Yes, they would have been mortified.
Okay, and was it winter or summer? Was it sunny outside or a little dark and cool?
Yes, it was dark and cool. It was after dinner. The kids were in bed, and it was like 70 degrees outside. So I wasn't sweating and getting my head buzzed. I was just comfortable.
And was there any alcohol involved? Before this or after? No, it was completely sober.
No.
Sober decision. I'm going to shave my head.
You know me, I don't drink alcohol. Yeah. It was just fun, and it wasn't this, I'm going to buzz my head and cry about it and be sad. Let me tell you, the next day I was in the car and I just stuck my head out and I just let the wind, just go through my head and my bald head. And it was the most amazing feeling. And you get to have that whenever you want. So does my husband. And I'm like so jealous now that I have hair, but I don't think that I would ever do it again. But it was fun. It was definitely one of those things where I can say I buzzed my head and I enjoyed it. And then after that, I had like a little pixie, and I didn't know because I have a divot in the back of my head, and I thought my head was going to be lopsided, but it was fine. I just I wanted to do it. And so don't get me wrong though. It wasn't all just pixie dust and rainbows. After that transitional phase where my head was buzzed and it was starting to grow out in like little stubs. As a girl, that's really hard to kind of decide, am I going to buzz it again or am I going to let it grow out and transition after that, even though it's still thinning on the top? So I was a little unsure. And even just going out, I would get stares. People didn't know if I was going through chemo but they, saw that I had eyebrows. And so they probably were like, she just buzzed her head. And so obviously there's going to be those opinions of other people, and they're going to think whatever they want and think you're crazy, think, why'd you have to do that? And everyone's going to have their own opinion, and they're always going to have something to say about you. And so that's why it's so important to just first make the decision based on what you feel is right, bounce it back with your spouse, talk about it. And if that's something that, well, I mean, I didn't really talk about it with my spouse, but he did know it was in the back of my mind. But, and then if that's important and that falls through, then that's all that matters. People are going to talk anyway. And so whether people thought my head was cool, whether they thought it was weird or ugly, I didn't care. I was like, I get to just stick my head out the window like a dog and enjoy it, but again, as a human being, there were those instances where I was just like, did I make the right choice? Sure. Just uneasiness.
So for a sort of on the spot decision to shave your head while I keep going back to the fridge. I don't know why I keep picturing you like,
it was by the fridge.
Okay.
It was by the fridge.
Something was going on there intuitively. We were connected.
Yep. Uh-huh.
Envisioning you like, hey, you want some more pasta? Hey, I'm going to buzz my head right now. Everybody, let's do it. Come on.
Yep. Uh-huh. It was pretty much like.
What do you know? Maybe you don't know this. What happened the day before or the week before? Was there something that happened that may have triggered you to decide to shave your head?
Yes, it was a whole compilation of things where, yes, it was a whole contemplation of things where I saw hair just in my hands after getting out of the shower or brushing my hair. And I got tired of thinking about it. And I thought to myself, if I bust my head, I don't have to think about it. This is going to be fun. And it has a multi-purpose because then I'll be able to buzz my head, right? And so I think that's what it all just came down to. It was just weeks and weeks and months of just being tired and exhausted of thinking about something that I just didn't want to think about.
Were you talking to anybody about it during that time before the buzz cut? Or was it all
just my husband,
right? And was he?
Yes.
Well, before we go anywhere else, just stay on your husband for a sec. Was he like me? Was he trying to give you solutions and make a fix, or was he just sitting and listening and really taking it in?
Both. He listened, and at first he thought, "Oh, you're not serious. You're gonna buzz your head." And so I was like, yeah, like, this sounds fun. And so we just left it there, but I would mention it, and he would just. He wasn't so surprised, but it was more of a, oh, really? But he knew that I would follow through with it.
The period of time though before you just talked about buzzing your hair, like the emotional part where you were seeing the hair in your hand out the shower. You said it was a compilation of things like that. Was it just your husband you were talking to about when that would happen, or was there anybody else you were talking to, or were you keeping it inside?
I would talk to my sister about it. I would talk to some close friends. Those people that are in my circle, or even other people, for me, what you see is what you get. And I'm an open book when it comes to those things. And so whenever someone would come up to me and they would say, oh, my hair is falling out a ton in the shower. And I'm just like, me too, and it sucks, doesn't it? And so just and it wouldn't be like a stranger at a grocery store, but I have family members that also have thinning hair, and other friends that, or acquaintances for that matter. So I think I forgot what I was saying. I forgot what I was saying.
That's
I'll pause
okay.
there.
So we're going to move on from the shaved head thing in a sec. But I've really highlighted this because it's a big turning point. It's a big thing to just suddenly, okay, I'm going to shave my head and I'm going to, try something different. From my experience of shaved heads and my shaved head right now, for those of you watching, it's another story. We'll get there someday in another interview. But me prior, I used to shave my head, and usually I would shave my head when I was going through something really emotional and I wanted a big change, and I would shave my head. And one time was, oh God, 2020, no, 2002. 2002, San Diego, gas lamp district, where all the bars are, at 1:30 a.m. in the morning. I'm with my rowdy high school friends. My friend was going to graduate the next day from UC San Diego. And we were drunk, and he starts getting in a tussle with the biggest bouncer you could ever see outside of a bar. And me, Mr. People Pleaser, sees my friend getting roughed up. So I went to help him, and then I got just pummeled by a lot of bouncers, and I had a broken nose, and it was, yeah. So after I recovered a little bit more, I shaved my head. I kept it inside, shaved my head, and it's just, yeah. So hearing you say that you didn't get in a bar fight, I'm glad you didn't get in a bar fight. But
And I was
you
sober.
were sober, I was not. That's probably what I was asking. but I've it can, I've seen some other friends of mine, they shave their head. I'm like, something happened, or is he just going for a new look?
Yeah, or even just changing your hair color sometimes
Mm.
for girls. They the same thing. I know I would do that. I would change my hair color whenever I felt distressed and I just needed something new. So yeah, that's crazy. So do you think after you got pounced by this bodyguard or bouncer or whatever, were you just in recovery mode and not able to just live normal life, and you were at home mostly and you just got sad? Or what was that transition of having that emotional shift?
Well, for me, there was no emotions really. I would stuff everything inside, and I
Mm.
just didn't know how. I didn't have anyone to talk to. I didn't talk to anybody. So, for me, it was always about, maybe if I can change something exterior, I can feel better inside,
Mm.
and then there's been multiple versions of that. I'm much more conscious now, far more conscious as a 43-year-old now on my journey of growth and spiritual growth, but I might have a little slip here and then. I might go buy something to feel better, so yeah, so just,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
so just doing something on the exterior to not feel, to change something up. So I'm glad you brought up about other women, you saying coloring their hair to have a change too.
yeah. And I think it's finding that balance too. I don't want to, give this impression about coloring your hair being a bad
Mm.
thing, because sometimes I think it's just like makeup, right? You get a different mascara, you want a blush that's a different tone, you get a lipstick that's a different color. And so why do we wear makeup? And sometimes it's just to have a little more boost of confidence, or just like the way that I explain it to my kids is it's just to look fancy. I never want them to feel like they need makeup or they need certain accessories in order to know their self-worth. And so it's okay to look
Yeah.
fancy. It's okay to want to have something different, or just play around with some things and have different hair, have, that's okay, as long as you know that you don't need those things and you are beautiful in your pajamas. You are beautiful without that princess dress that you have on right now. And so it's so important to emphasize those things, even for those mamas out there that have girls. They are watching you when you put your hair topper on. They are watching you, how you act when your hair topper is not on, because I don't always wear mine. And so they are watching every little thing. And so it's so important to really be mindful of not only what we consume, but what are we portraying, just as not only a mom, but as a friend, as a spouse, as a mother, as a daughter, as a sister, because they watch everything. And it's not just daughters that are watching, but it's also sons, obviously. I do feel, though, that with girls, they are going to grow up and also be infiltrated with all of social media, all of the celebrities, and all these expectations. It's so important to set those guidelines early on and let your kids know you are worthy, even without these extra fancy things, that we put on. Even if mommy doesn't dye her hair, this month, even if I choose a different color next month, it's not always a bad thing. Sometimes just fun.
So in wearing toppers around the house and with the family, what was the first reaction when you first came home with a topper? Did anyone notice, or did you tell everyone? Like, how did you keep it a secret at first, or how was it? How did it work?
I didn't even know that toppers existed. After I buzzed my head was when I found out about it, maybe 2 years ago. And it was this enlightenment. And I thought, what? There's something you can put on top of your hair, and it's not an extension that just blends in with your hair. Because my issue isn't obviously in here, it's just on the top. I didn't know that there's an extension for the top of your hair. So I was excited about it, and I was telling everyone about it. Like, did you know there's something you could put on top of your hair? And so, those close to me, my family, they knew that I was thinking about it. Now, of course, depending on the person that you talk to, for instance, my mom had secondhand embarrassment, after when I told her I was going to get it. And when I showed it to her, I was like, look, Mom. And granted, I got my first topper from a company that was not reputable and I would not recommend, and I returned it. But that was the first one that I had on. And so she's like, oh, we're going to wear that. I was like, yeah, doesn't it look cool? Like, isn't it, I was just excited about it. And so I returned it. I got another one, and I decided to invest in one. And then I wore it, and my mom didn't even notice. She was just like, oh, wow. Because I was getting ready to go out, and I had it on. She's like, wow, you look really nice. Your hair looks really nice. She didn't even notice. Couldn't even tell I had it on, which is crazy because that's my mom, right? And so coming from, feeling bad for me in the beginning, and then afterwards seeing it and not even noticing is a huge, just drastic difference. And so I've noticed too. I mean, it's hard for people to feel sorry for you if you don't feel sorry for yourself. And I didn't feel sorry for myself. And so my mom couldn't help but also trying to not feel sorry for me either, because she knew I was coming from a place of, I'm going to try something new. I'm going to walk in this and feel confident in it, rather than trying to find her approval. And so I just tried to own it and said, I'm just going to wear it. And then that's when it all began, and totally worth it.
So you said the word approval, and I wrote that down before you said it, and I circled it as you said it. I was like, oh my God, she said what I was going to ask her, Mum's approval. Did you ever need Mum's approval inside? Were you ever like, look, Mom, look what I've done?
Yeah, well, I think for everyone in the back of their mind, there's always this whisper of wanting to
Hmm.
please, right? It's always, I think for everyone, and whether someone wants to deny it or not, there's always that option there. And so we have to choose, am I going to listen to that? Am I going to walk in that? Or am I going to push past it? And so once you continue to push past it more and more, it becomes easier to do so next time. So I've had to practice, in my adulthood. Am I going to listen to that, or am I going to jump in and continue to practice and be confident and walk in to what I want to walk in? And so now I've gotten to this point in my life where it's a really small whisper and I just ignore it, and I'm able to be confident in the decisions that I've made and know that, again, people are always going to have their opinion and I don't need their approval. As long as I know my self-worth and what I have to bring to the table and who I am, then it doesn't matter. Because regardless, whether it's good or bad, I can be a nun and live my life righteous. People are still going to have something to say. I can be a heathen. People are still going to have something to say. And so it's just, I think as long as, like, for me, my faith is a huge thing. And as long as that is in line, and again, with those closest to you, that's what matters.
So not needing approval from others.
Right.
Wow. So you
Yes.
talked about, I can be beautiful in my pajamas, right? Or mums, you can be beautiful in your pajamas, right? So and I agree with that, be cozy. Where does it come? I'm like thinking of both sides of this spectrum. There's like, in my pajama, like I'll put it in terms of me, in terms of okay. I'm in my pajamas, I'm fully unshaven, I'm just like, just, but I'm really comfortable with myself, right? But then the outside doesn't really portray that. Then the other side of the spectrum is I'm only focusing on my outside appearances. I got to work out, got to do this, got to do that. Perfect, shaven, clean, everything haircut like
Yeah.
once a week and all that. Like, there's like, because it's almost like, is it really, if I'm really in love with myself and I'm comfortable with myself, would I really be unshaven and not look it on the outside? Do you know what I'm getting at?
Mm.
See what I'm getting?
I do.
Please help me
Yeah.
out.
And no, yeah, and I understand what you're saying. And what came to mind was after I had my second and I started receding, or not receding, but thinning on top and becoming overweight, I realized that a lot of my confidence was on my
Mhm.
looks. And my mindset had to shift, where my self-worth wasn't based on what I looked like and the attention that I would get. But now that I'm overweight and dressing like Adam Sandler and, having my hair thin, I had to make a choice. Am I still going to walk in boldness? Am I still going to walk true to who I am and have that self-worth in me, grounded in me, and have that foundation in me? Because obviously we want to be respectable of other people. I'm not going to go smelling like BO, into a meeting, and that's just not respectable, right? That, obviously you shave because you want to look professional and
Mhm.
presentable. So there's a difference there, right? I'm not going to be dressing like Adam Sandler all day, but I think that there's that fine line. And even if I am cozied up with my hair in a bun, with pajamas, knowing that I am the same person and the same Emily that I am even when I do get fancied up. Even the Emily that I was a decade ago, 2 decades ago, I'm still that same Emily. And so it's so important to have those things set, because those are the foundation, those foundational skills, those foundational tools that I think are going to carry on. Even when I am 60 years old and my hair is gray and I'm not youthful anymore, and I have all of these things going on that don't look like they do now. And so once that foundation is set, it's so helpful because it keeps you grounded. And it's an immovable in my life where I just know if I walk out right now with no topper, no hair fiber, I know that even if someone were to say something, I'm going to believe what I have to say for myself, what God says about me.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful. It's like you're shielded. That's none of that negativity
Hmm.
is coming in. That's amazing. So you talked about hair fibers, you talked about toppers. Did it ever cross your mind when you buzzed your hair to try a wig?
I no, I so I thought a wig is
Right.
extreme. In
Yeah.
my mind, I thought wigs, that's like a whole, that's just really diving in, and I just wasn't ready for that because I have hair for the most part. It's just up here. And so I thought that's just going to be a lot because I have a lot of hair down here. But then a topper didn't even cross my mind because I didn't know about it. So no, wigs did not. I would have not done it. And actually a family member did bring it up and say, why don't you try a wig? And I was like, I mean, it sounds kind of fun, but I just want to kind of have
Yeah.
my head bust for a little bit.
So you must
So
own many toppers, I imagine. And do you leave them around the You have four
I have
toppers.
four
Okay. Three.
or three or four. I
Okay.
don't have a
You have
ton.
three or four
Yeah.
toppers. Um, do you leave them around the house ever? Like in just you're running around, you just drop it down somewhere, and what does it look like? Does your family say
Yeah.
anything? Like what seeing hair hanging out of drawers
You
and
know, since I yeah, since I'm so open about it, I think subconsciously people find out and they're not going to confront you about it, but they're always kind of checking to see if they can see
hmm,
anything, if they can see the blending, if they could see that you're wearing it. And I find it kind of funny. But that's for me. I would just rather someone be like, "Are you wearing your topper?" instead of like trying to, just because of, I don't know. I guess my personality, but people just aren't like that, and so I've had to learn to just, it's whatever. I'm not just gonna point it out and be like, "Yeah, I am wearing it," because sometimes it's subconscious, or sometimes they're not even doing that. Right? I think so much focus has been on my hair for so long that sometimes it could be where I'm thinking something where it's not.
yeah, we were talking about toppers and wearing a topper and people noticing or not noticing, or you've told them and they're looking, and maybe they're talking to your hair sometimes and not you. They're trying to see something after you tell them.
Yeah.
I get that. I've seen that. And when you first started wearing toppers, did you start with, you know, how did you know how to pick your first topper, the sizing, and did you go to a salon? Did you get a consultation? It's only been 2 years, right? You've been wearing toppers? 2 years, and you own
Yes.
4 toppers in 2 years, which is brilliant. I've heard of it sounds like you found some good go-tos in those 2 years. I've spoke
You being
Oh,
one of,
thank you so much, thank you
yes.
so much. You look Yeah, I remember when we did that shoot, and you'll be seeing pictures in this as well of you, and you're amazing in your videos and everything. And
Thank you.
the choosing a topper, choosing the color, I I feel like it's almost like the second, and I've talked about this in other interviews, it's like the second or third stage of the journey is finding the right topper.
Hmm.
It's so difficult, and many
Yeah.
can get discouraged by receiving a topper.
Yeah.
Many could even there are women that could receive a topper in the post, right? They're ordering it online from somewhere, and it actually could be the right topper, but it's just not been cut in. It's not been styled. Or maybe it's just the wrong color,
Mm.
but everything else is right. The base is, the size is right, the texture is right, the color the color is not right, which is probably the hardest thing, is to match the color. But being a brunette, you've definitely got it easier than a blonde. Definitely, definitely. That's for sure.
Yeah, I do. And so,
Go ahead.
go ahead. I When you were talking, I was thinking about the grieving
Mm.
process. When we find out that there's hair loss, grieving looks different for everyone. And sometimes that process can be really slow. It can come in increments or it can come all at once. And so for me, luckily, the grieving process wasn't very long, because, like I said, I was fortunate enough to have that foundation set in place. And so I did go through the short grieving process, though, and that process that you're talking about can be overwhelming. And I found this lady named Lacey on Instagram who I now work for, and she helped me tremendously. And she was so helpful. I just sent her a message and I was so overwhelmed. And with all this information, really, because at first I didn't even know you can clip a topper on. And then I didn't know what company to go to, all these other details. And so I just messaged her and she messaged me back. And from then on, it was just that reassurance. It's really not that big of a deal. Like, just go for it. It's just hair. It's just an accessory. Let's just try it. At this point, or at that point where I just thought, I'll just try it. Why not? And so that doesn't always look the same for everyone, though. There could be some women that are just, I actually know some women who are mortified of the fact of just talking about their thinning hair. They're mortified to just even go out in public without a hat. Excuse me. So it just looks different for everyone. And so it's so important to know that whatever process you're in, whatever grieving process that you're in, that's also validated, that's okay. It's okay. Where you're at is where you're at. So have grace on yourself, because we all process things differently.
Did you did you go to dermatologists, doctors? Did you try any of the many things that we hear about, like PRP, steroid injections, like the medical stuff, like topical treatments, Rogaine? There's so many. There's so many, like the
There are.
pills and the sprays and minoxidil.
Yeah.
There's a million things. Did you try
Yeah.
any of those? Like taking lots of vitamin B, biotin, and were anything like that you try?
When I was 17, I did go to the doctor and they prescribed
Mm-hmm.
Rogaine. I used that for about a couple months. I
Mm-hmm.
hated it. Stopped using it, didn't do anything. And then as I got older, I thought maybe I should start taking biotin. It didn't do anything. Then I started taking this other hair supplement. It would help my hair grow, but it wouldn't fill it in the thin areas. So then I stopped taking it. And then I thought, this is a lot to think about. It's overwhelming. I don't even want to think about getting steroid injections, because I had gotten them for my knees and it's so painful. And just the thought of that, I didn't want to do that. PRP also I've heard, is really painful. And minoxidil is really similar to Rogaine. And so I just thought, I don't want to do that again. So now I just don't do anything. Now I just don't, I guess I've gotten to the point where I just don't want to think about it. And I want to be okay with just how I am and not focus so much and emphasize so much on my hair, because I have more to offer than just my hair. I am more than just Emily with thin hair. I am Emily and this, Emily who loves plants, Emily who has 3 girls, Emily who, whatever that looks like. It's not just, I don't want to just hyperfixate on this. And I feel like I know myself, and once I start looking into things, then I go into this rabbit hole of Googling things. Does this work? Researching. And I just don't want to go through that again, because I remember going through that after it first started. And it's so
Mm-hmm.
draining. It's so emotionally draining. It's physically draining. And I just have other things that I want to focus my time on rather than my hair. And so toppers have been in that sense, nice to have because I could just throw it on and not think about it also. Because I noticed that right before I'm about to start my cycle and my hormones are shifting again, that's when I feel more emotional or more sensitive. And then I start to think about my hair more. And
Oh,
so then I have to go back to the tools and that foundation that has been set and go back to that and remember. And so I have to be really careful the week before. And this again could look different for other women, but for me, I know that I am more sensitive during that week right before I start my cycle. And so I try to be careful. What am I watching? Am I going to be, looking at Selma Hayek's hair on Instagram and just, being like, wow, she has gray hair. I wish I had gray hair. And then just swallowing in self pity, which is fine to do for a moment, but I don't want to stay there. And so I know that if I am already feeling sensitive, I want to guard my eyes and my heart. And so that I'm not bitter. And then it doesn't progress into when I am on my cycle or afterwards, right? And so it's about knowing yourself, knowing your body, your mindset, what are your triggers, and then like having this dome, just to protect yourself. And that looks like the people that you surround yourself with, the people that you follow. What are you reading? Well, what are you watching? And so a lot of that consumes who we are. And so depending on what we consume and what those things are is how we're walking and what we're walking out. And so I want to walk out in confidence. I want to walk out in who I am and be confident in that. And if I am listening to all these other things and all these negative thoughts or whatever, then that's what's going to be my focus and my drive.
the negative thoughts or the solutions to the negative thoughts I have heard, and I hear in my mind, if I could just ... then I'd be happy.
Yeah.
If only ... then I'd be complete. So it's like separating myself from that, because it's always something external. If I could just fix this one thing, then it'd be everything. Then I'd be okay. And you mentioned the rabbit hole, the research rabbit hole. Oh my goodness! I mean, the amount of hours and hours I've heard of consumers, anyone who's going through hair loss, like pours into the research, and not all of it's real good out there, online. Like it's not all good. Just because it trends high doesn't mean it's right. Oh my God, I recently put nail polish remover on one of my guitars to get a sticker off. Big no. There were so many people. It was like so hot. I was like, oh, it must be good. I quickly went and did it. Burnt right through the paint to the wood. And my wife's like, you should have told me. Why did you take my nail? I was like, said it on Google. I did it, and I'm like, I was like, no. And it was like, right. Guitar like world or something. Anyway, so they're not always true, but the amount of research I hear on the hair loss and then the toppers and what's the right topper or the wig when it gets to that. But like the whole section before of the topicals and the medical things and the PRP and the injections, I mean, it's mind-blowing, what we can try. But anyway, and not I'm not saying that any of them are wrong. There's many of them that work and are great. But today do you wear toppers daily, or is it sometimes, or is it just when you go out? How do toppers enter your life now?
I don't wear them all the time. I find that I don't wear them all the time. I do think that sometimes I like to wear them if I'm going to go out, to like a fancy date or a dinner or just hang out. Sometimes I don't like to wear them because it's too hot outside, or I'm going to be hiking or going on a jog or whatever. I'm not one of those I'm not inclined to wear my topper in a pool per se. I know that some women are okay with doing so, but I I wouldn't
In
want
a
to do
swimming
that.
pool?
And it's not
Oh my
a
God, don't wear
swimming
your
pool,
toppers in a
yes.
swimming pool. Everyone, please. If you want it to last, if you want to buy a new one every
Don't
month,
don't
oh my
women do
God, well, yeah, you
that?
got to buy a lot of toppers. It's chlorine. Holy moly. Toppers don't like
Yes, it
chlorine.
makes them
Yeah.
hard. Yeah. And so, some women do that, but I would rather just
Hmm.
enjoy my time, and not have to worry and shift it. Same thing if I'm gonna go, to the gym. I'm just not. I do my best to not fixate on it and to think of it as a
Hmm.
purse, to think of it as earrings. Do I want to add just an extra fluff today? And even if I don't, am I okay? Because there are days where I just think my hair is a mess. I haven't washed it in 2 days. Throw a topper on. No one would even know. I don't have to do anything. I just have to brush it. So easy. But then there are other days where I just get out of the shower, I just brush it, and it's fine. I just let it
When you
be.
ordered your first topper, and because I think I remember you saying it was being delivered to you, right? Was that right? It was something you ordered, not with a salon.
Mhm.
What were you tracking the order coming to you? Were you excited? Like, what, or were you like scared? Like, what were your feelings behind the whole, while it was coming and then when you received it? Like, what? Tell me what happened.
I was excited. I was
Mm-hmm.
really looking forward to trying something different. Again, I think in my mind, I was really on this search and goal to not be so fixated on my hair
Mm-hmm.
loss anymore that I took to the extreme of buzzing my head, right? And so when I got the topper, I was like, I don't want to think about this anymore. I just want to throw it on. And so I was excited to just try something different. My hair was just starting to get longer, so it was like up to my shoulders. And so that was another thing too, is that when I had first gotten my first toppers, my hair was harder to blend. And so I didn't realize that as my hair got longer, it would be easier to blend because I didn't want to cut my topper so drastically. I think the hardest part was blending.
Blending.
I remember,
Blending
yes.
what?
I
The edge of the base or the color or the cut of the hair?
So the color was easy for me just because of my hair color. I don't have highlights, and so I was able to just get the darkest brown,
Right.
black. Blending as far as my hairline to the hairline of the
Mm-hmm.
topper is what was difficult for me. So I remember going to an event that I was volunteering to, and I had gotten this new topper from Lesta Hair, and their hair is a silk topper, so it has more hair. It's beautiful hair, and so I put it on, and I just, you know, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, I just want to try it, and so I put it on, and I had this whole thing right there,
The front
just
inch of
out.
your hair, right? The
Yes,
transition. So you had your bio
yes,
hair before
and
the
then
edge of the topper, right? Uh-huh.
yes, and it was just kind of like as the day went
Floating,
by,
yeah,
it was just like
then
going
moving
further
back.
and further,
Oh my
and
gosh.
yes. And so I was talking to one of the ladies there, and I was looking down at my phone, and I can tell she was just staring. And I was just like, oh, just amazed at this hair, whatever. I wasn't thinking much of it. And so afterwards, I go to the bathroom, and I'm like, oh my god, it's all like it was so evident. And those kind of things, I think it's so important to know once one is diving into the hair topper world, there's going to be
Yeah.
hiccups like that. And it's so important to be prepared for them. And I'm truly a believer of just laughter being the best medicine. And sometimes we just have to laugh and just make a joke out of it. And make light of it, right? It's not that heavy. So it's how we approach it. And so I had my Lusta topper for a while, which was very thick. And then I got your topper, which is a lot lighter. The cap is a lot lighter, beautiful hair. It was a lot easier to blend in. So with my Lusta, I can still blend it. I would just use the fibers, but with yours, I hardly have to use any at all or none at all. And so it just got easier. I think that, some women see the topper and they give up and they think this is too hard. I can't blend it. The color is off. It's overwhelming. And so I just want to encourage you to just pass through that, because it's so important to get it cut and styled, for one. For two, it's almost like saying, I want to be an author, but then expecting to just write a book the next day without practicing and without writing in your journal, without, writing out a paragraph here and there, and then the next month writing 2 or 3. It's a process. We can't just expect ourselves to be there the next day. There's going to be hiccups. There's going to be bumps. And so how we deal with those things, obviously, make a huge difference. So I'm able to wear my hair toppers today effortlessly and not think about how hard it's going to be to put them on, or think about or worry about blending it, because I've had to practice, because I've had to put myself in those situations where it doesn't look the best, but still go through with it, because I still want to get the feel of wearing it.
You're absolutely right. It is hard. It is very hard to get a topper to look good or a wig to look good, especially if I'm not trained, I've not had an experience. You gave a really, really big example. Like, I want to be a writer. I can't expect to write a book on day 2. What about makeup? First, from never wearing makeup to being able to apply makeup like really naturally and like not overdo it, like on the lipstick or the eyeshadow, or how long is that a practice? Does that take a time to get good at, or does it come like the next day you look good on wearing makeup?
I'm gonna be honest, I've never been into wearing like foundation and contour. I still don't know.
All right. Yeah. So it's similar.
I just put a little bit underneath my eyes, but I don't do like the contour. I don't wear foundation. I personally just don't like how it feels. I've thought about getting like, just the powder, but I don't know. But I do have friends that love makeup, and they are in cosmetic school, and it's a process. For me, I definitely got to that point where I would watch YouTube tutorials on how to contour, and I was like, this is overwhelming. I don't want to do it. I'm just going to put on mascara, and a little bit of eyeliner if I really want to go overboard. But, I just don't wear a lot of makeup to begin with. This is probably the most that I have, if you're seeing this and not listening in a podcast, but it's different for everyone, right? And so if someone loves makeup, which is totally fine, and I wish I was good at makeup, also be gentle on yourself and remember how much practice did one have to get in order to get to that point where you can just sit down, not think about it, have fun wearing the makeup or putting it on and applying it, rather than months before, years before, really having to take the time and it taking double the time and fixating on the eyeliner and it not being perfect. And now you've gotten to the point where it's just on fleek all the time. And so that takes time.
Yeah, I think makeup, there is the difference though is there's a lot more education out there on how to apply and use makeup, and it's melded into like the fabric of our society, that that a young lady or wanted to wear makeup, possibly her mother right there or sister wears makeup and knows how to help them. But the chances of a sister or mother saying, oh yeah, I've got a topper too, let me show you how to do it, very, very limited. It's like there's not as much, it's not in our fabric of society. Not everyone's wearing toppers. It's definitely a journey of learning how to make it look good. And I have seen, because I've got my eyes open all the time, and I've seen machine-made wigs out there, like synthetic machine-made wigs, which are the most affordable wigs out there, which are great. They're mass-produced. I have seen a couple women in my life take one of those wigs and make it look unbelievable with a parting on a machine. I'm like, how is she doing this? How has she done that?
Wow.
I was in a supermarket and she was at the checkout register checking out food, and I was like, no one notices this. I mean, I'm lucky I notice it, but I know what that is because I recognize from the hair and this and that. So that's extremely advanced. But it is a process, and it can take 2 or 3 weeks, would you say, to get good at using the topper? Or months? What would you say?
Yes. I think depending on how much you're
Right.
willing to put yourself out there. So I had to be okay with wearing it, even knowing that I wasn't perfect at it yet, and not waiting until I was going to be perfect at it in order to
Yeah.
wear it out. Now, that can look different for other people. Some people may be okay with just wearing it at home, and getting comfortable with it there. So you had asked earlier what that looks like, wearing a topper. When I come home, I take it off, and I sometimes don't want to come upstairs and put it in my room. I'll set it on a chair, like
Yeah.
on the corner of the chair. And it just looks like a
Yeah.
little puppy, like from far away. If someone were to come in, it's just like, what is that? Like Chewbacca? I don't know. But it's so important to familiarize toppers. And I think that just like how you made that point with makeup, you know, toppers are not
Yeah.
really talked about. And so someone can say, wow, you did your makeup great, but not say, wow, I really like how your hair looks. And I know that you're wearing a topper and it also looks great, So it's just not, I mean, there are celebrities that wear
Yeah.
toppers, but they don't
Yeah.
talk about it.
The
They
Go
don't,
ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, they just don't talk about it.
The old fashioned joke. This is decades old. This joke in our industry is, oh, nice wig. That's the nice
Yeah.
topper. Yeah, love your topper. Like that, obviously it's
Yeah.
supposed to be so good. If it's good, you can't notice it, but that's the old joke.
Right.
But I've heard that there are solutions. I've heard so many stories. I heard there's one consumer told me, she said, I wore my topper around the house for 2 weeks every day just to get used to it before I got comfortable wearing it outside. I wore my topper
Mm.
for Zoom calls for work and tested it out there before I went
Mm.
outside. And then, there's all these different stories, and it's definitely a skill. And there's pros and cons to so many. I mean, please ask us in the comments if there's any questions about toppers you want to know. What's the difference between this one and that one, and how to wear it? Like you mentioned, French tops, silk tops, then there's mono tops, and how to make the front blend in. I mean, you use fibers, which is great. There's a company on Amazon. What's the fibers you use?
There's
Sure
Sure
Think, that's
Think,
the one.
and there's so Lusta Hair just came out with clingy fibers, and theirs is cotton based, and I personally like those.
So cotton based, okay. And Luster has it. Yeah, there's many companies that have those, and that can help blend in that the material at the front. It's
Yes.
there's so, I mean, we can talk for hours. We're not going to go talk about base materials and the transition from one base material to, I know that
Yes.
because I make them. I'm happy to answer any questions like, and Luster has it. Yeah, there's many companies that have those, and that can help blend in that the material at the front. Is there's so, I mean, we can talk for hours. We're not going to go talk about base materials and the transition from one base material to, I know that because I make them. I'm
Yes.
happy to answer any questions like that. But the styling, it is possible. And I would say don't be discouraged when you get a topper out of the box or the bag and it looks like a topper, because and it will look like a topper on your head. If you just stick it on your head, it takes a little love and styling, and you'll see Emily. We've got some videos of her just like whipping on a topper and then taking it off. She's so good at it. Even putting on a topper and taking it off, this takes practice, right?
It does, because in the beginning, I was just kind of putting it on top, and then I noticed that the hair would just get super messy, and so it's like this.
Yeah, that's what you do. Yeah,
this whipping kind
you
of
get your whole
thing.
body into it and you whip it around.
Yeah, it's a whole dance. It's just whipping it on, and it just becomes easier. So I'm glad to be at this point now where I'm comfortable doing so, but I just want y'all to know it wasn't always like that. And it's not always going to be like that. If you guys are in a place of uncertainty, push through.
So why is it easier for brunettes? Because I hear color is the most challenging thing. We're looking at TV screens and monitors and looking at Oh, is that my color? Is that my color? And you're looking at pictures of models wearing it under different lighting. And how on earth, how do you go about picking colors? And what's the safest way to pick colors? What would you suggest, Emily?
So there are some companies that have swatches, such as yourself, which make it so much easier because you literally get a swatch, because you literally get a whole stack of swatches where you can put it up against your hair and say, oh, no, not this one, too dark, too light. So not all companies do that, though. Not all companies take the initiative to give that extra help. However, when it comes down to going to the website and deciding on a color, just keep in mind that once you have it on and the blending is accurate in the front, if the color is slightly off, it's not going to be noticeable. And I think some people fixate on that and trying to get the color exactly. But with some companies, that's almost impossible. And so sometimes it is better to go a little bit darker, just because the hair underneath is going to blend with the hair on top in that. And you can always move it around. You can always curl it, things like that. But then when you go lighter, then the hard thing is that when you're blending in the front, then sometimes that can be an issue. And then you have to get fibers that are the color of the topper. Now you can always dye the topper, but just know that that changes a little bit the texture of the hair. And it also makes the hair last a little bit less long if you don't take care of it accurately with conditioning it and not washing it every other day. And so there's so much that goes into all of that, right? But as far as the color goes, it's so important to not overthink it, because I think that overthinking it really just becomes an overwhelming situation, and then it's not helpful. So that's what I would say
So
about that.
your suggestion is go safe bet is to go a little bit darker than your bio hair with the topper. Is that what you said?
Yes, that's if you really cannot
Yeah.
decide. If you're deciding between two colors, I would suggest going with the
And the
darker one.
chances of the color being a direct match for your hair is like, like 100% match is unlikely, because, factories
Mhm.
we're manufacturing these, and, we haven't seen your hair color. Yeah. So we
Right.
try and make, like for dimples, we put low lights and highlights and do dimension in the hair as much as possible to help it, especially with the blondes. Oh my god, like, they say blondes have more fun, but I think brunettes might have more fun with toppers, because blondes are going to spend more money to get it look to I mean, much harder,
Yes.
much harder. I've seen it probably twice ever, like direct match, like, oh my god, I can't even tell, right,
Mhm.
with a blonde,
Right.
because there's just so much more. You've got like the golden, the ashy, and the red, and it's a lot harder with a blonde. So I've heard it's common to do a little bit of low lighting or matching, like the biohair, the topper. I always say safer to low light than highlight. That's the best thing to
Yes.
do. But yeah, have you experienced that? With blondes, finding blondes harder to match?
Definitely. Well, working with Lacey, I answer a lot of questions and people messaging and asking about questions. And so I'm answering those questions. And so it's really important to emphasize to stay away from jet black.
Mm,
Unless you're dyeing your hair jet black constantly, and then that would work. But no one's hair is jet black.
yes,
That's just,
yes.
and so it's nice to have companies like yourself who add and integrate those variations of highlights, even when it's a brunette color, because then it's easier to blend. My hair, you'll see in the sun, there's
Yeah.
undertones of brown and things like that. And so when you get a topper that has the same undertones and that extra effort is put into it, it's a lot easier to blend. So when people ask, I'm really looking for an ashy color, I'm really looking for more of a blonde and this and that, sometimes we do have to incorporate the fibers into that. Sometimes we do have to highlight it a little bit. Sometimes they do have to send it in and go in and get it styled, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's hard. It is harder. I mean, it's easier, but then it's harder wearing toppers than wigs,
Mm-hmm.
because with toppers we've got to blend it with the body hair. With wig, you don't. You know, so if you're off by a shade with a wig,
Right.
there's nothing.
No one
No one
would
would
know.
know, because all you see is that hair, that one tone, or the from the
Yeah.
wig. Yeah, the catch is that there are so few stylists that are trained with toppers and wigs. So few. There's long driving distances to get from one to the
Yeah.
other. There are some remote ones where you can send your topper in, and we might start testing that with Dimples. I'm not sure. Maybe we'll see. But yeah, that's definitely a challenge. But if you can start with a color that's one shade difference, like you said, darker than your hair, and style that part, get the zigzag out, make it the left or the right part that goes for you. I mean, that's a really good start. Are you able to style a topper out the box, or do you usually wash it? Is there a process you do to make it look good?
So I noticed that after you wash it, depending on the company, the hair can come out really frizzy, really wavy, or it can just have different textures
Mm-hmm.
to it. And so sometimes there's no way of knowing until you do wash it. So out of the box, the hair will usually feel like butter, just because of the chemicals that were put into it, depending if it was highly processed or not. So if it's out of the box and it feels a certain way, after it's washed, it's not going to feel that way. If you're getting a topper that's not high quality, it's just going to start getting
Yeah.
dry and tangly. And so being prepared for those things, I think, would kind of ease any kind of disappointment, and just be ready to have that mindset of, okay, let's just try something different. Okay, now I know that I want this kind of topper or this kind of texture. It all intertwines too with the cap construction. So I had mentioned with the silk topper, it has more hair, but then that's not a topper that I'm going to want to wear when it's 100 degrees out, and so there are other toppers that when you wash them, they come out wavy. And so if you want to straighten your hair, you're going to have to get a mannequin head, put it on, and straighten it in order to blend properly.
We have a stylist that we work with a lot. She's awesome, Deborah, and she has this term. She says, "Oh yeah, whenever I get something and I know I'm going to keep it," she says, "I like to wash the factory out." So she
Mm,
washes it out, gets it out,
yeah.
so then she can style it, consistently every time herself.
Yes.
How
Yeah.
often do you wash your toppers, Emily?
So because I don't wear my toppers every day, I try to only wash my topper once a month.
Okay.
Now, now if someone wears their topper every day and it's that same topper, then I would say wash it every two
Okay.
weeks or maybe 3. Now, for me, I'm able to interchange my toppers where I can wear one topper today and wear a different topper in 3 days and wear a different, and so that helps the longevity of the topper itself, but also the more you wash it, the less it's going to last. And so keeping that in mind, that even when you're conditioning it in between, not adding too much oil, because too much deep conditioning can also attract
Yeah.
debris into the topper and make it dirtier quicker.
Do you use styling products and softening agents and conditioners in between washes?
I do. I have this oil from Nectar, and you basically apply half a dime size on your palm, and a little goes a long way. And so you just rub it against your hands and you put it through the topper, sometimes the ends. You don't really want to put it on the scalp
No.
where the cap
Yeah.
is, just because sometimes it loosens
Definitely not.
the
Yep.
knots if it's hand tied. And so any leftover, you really want to just put it at the ends of the hair, because we have to remember, right? Our toppers, they don't produce natural oils just like our head does. And so we want to make sure that we're applying those oils in order to maintain the topper and the quality of it. But then also washing it too much can degrade it as well. And then washing it too little with allowing the debris to build up can also, but it's just like plants. It's better to underwater it than overwater it. If you overwater a plant, you're gonna kill the
Yeah.
plant. If you underwater it, then there's a chance for it. If you overwash your topper, it's definitely gonna go down the tank really fast. So it's better to just lean on the caution of, I'm gonna wash it only if I really need to.
And we do have something. I'll definitely send you some. We have a new spray. It's our conditioning spray for our human hair toppers, and it's really great in between washes to add some moisture. It's like plants. I don't do this enough for my plants. I love plants, but giving them a little minerals between every now and then between waterings and all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got to give some, because the hair's dead. It's not producing any oils like you
Yes.
said. So we've got to take more care of it, if anything. So I want to ask you
Right.
one more question, Emily. Thank you so much for your time. One last question.
Of course.
I ask this to everybody. Somebody new to toppers or hair loss. 3 tips. What would your 3 tips be for them?
Someone new to hair loss. Well, I would say that you're not alone, for one. There are a lot of women out there going through the same thing that you are going through. They are just not ready to talk about it yet. So you may look around and think that everyone is just beautiful and everyone is beautiful, but you may look around and think everyone just looks normal. Everyone has beautiful, luscious hair. No one is thinking about their hair. No one is thinking about anything else, but you'd be surprised. Once we're in proximity of people and there's the connection and we're able to know a little bit more about their lives, that's not it at all. And so I would say, 1, you're not alone. 2, set those foundational tools and skills in order, like we touched on and talked about, in order to be able to help you in your everyday life. So that whisper in the back of our minds, that are negative thoughts, what are we going to listen to? Are we going to agree with that voice, or are we going to say, no, I am worthy and I am confident and I'm going to push past this, and I am not what they say that I am, but I know who I am, and I know that. And so I would say that is the second thing, because it's very important to have that foundation, because it's going to not only just affect you, but it's going to bleed over into the people that are in your life and those closest to you. And then also when you're old and gray. And so that is important. And the third thing that I would say is be bold. And I know that looks different for everyone, but being bold may look like, standing on a table and dancing, or being bold may be being brave and confronting someone about an issue. Being bold may look like wearing a topper even though you're mortified to wear it out in public, or to show your significant other, or to show your best friend, or to show whoever. Boldness looks different for everyone. And we just have to remind ourselves, as the third point, that being bold, being brave, and being confident goes a long way. And it's not just going to affect your life, but again, it's going to affect those around you.
Emily, thank you so much. Believe it or not, you answered so many questions I was going to ask you, such as what goes on in the mind and the thinking, and how you turn it around with positivity and self-love. I think that you help so many women with hair loss. I think what you're doing is amazing. Thank you so much for being on our show.
Oh, I'm glad to hear. Thank you. That's encouraging. I think that we should definitely normalize this topic. And so not hiding from it, but embracing it. And if anyone ever has any questions, feel free. I'm happy to answer any, because you're not alone.
Brilliant. We'll definitely share your info. And thank you so much for being on our show, Emily.
Of course. Until next time.